So, welcome to the panel about, with, by, for documentaries and young audiences. This is the open part of our workshop that has been going on for the last 1.5 days. And we are kind of on the finish line here of a very intensive and I think actually very entertaining and fruitful 1.5 days, where at the workshop were brought together a lot of very different people, filmmakers, producers, distributors, and young people who are not only in the audience here, but were also a really crucial part of this workshop for the last 2 days. We started out very freely, and I think during the last sessions we got more and more concrete, and I think now everyone is really ready to put this into the open, what we have been working on the last 1.5 days. But before that, I will leave the stage to Elisabeth Wenk from Kids Regio. Elisabeth is here. And Elisabeth is from Kids Regio, which is the lobby for good and creative European children's film. And she will not be alone on stage for a long time, but she will ask to other people up front here. And I will leave this to you. So please tell us about Kids Regio.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. As I've been part of this incredible workshop, I'm really full of ideas, and so let's keep this discussion rolling. As Lina said, I'm Elisabeth Wenk. I work for Kids Regio. We are a lobby initiative for high-quality European children's film. We mainly focus on live-action feature films with original scripts, but we also now more and more work in the field of documentaries for young audiences. And that's why we're here. And we belong to Scene Regio, which is the regional film funds, the network of regional film funds on a European stage, as we work on a European level. And so I brought my very good friend from Docu Regio, Lisa from Skåne, with me. So, yeah, please, Lisa, introduce yourself.
So I'm commissioning editor for documentaries at the regional film fund Skåne, which is the southernmost region in Sweden. And here I'm also with 2 hats, because we're also a group of film funds within the Scene Regio network of 50 film funds throughout Europe that are looking specifically into documentaries. So we're a subgroup called Docu Regio.
Yes, and as we are also a subgroup in the Scene Regio network, we collaborated this year and have been on many, or not real stages, but virtual stages together. So we do it together today, and part of Scene Regio is also the MOIN Filmförderung, as we are a network of regional film funds. So I invite Helge Albers on stage to represent MOIN Film Fund.
Hello. Test.
Maybe you can just introduce yourself and the Film Fund for those who don't know about it, just real quick.
The MOIN Film Fund is the most northern film fund. Unlike you're the most southern, we're the most northern film fund in Germany. We're a regional film fund. The abbreviation MOIN stands for Moving Images North, which is what we do. We're trying to move images up into our region. We're trying to support the media industries in our region, and we're based in Hamburg and in Kiel. And as you are, we are also part of the Scene Regio network and Kids Regio as well. So,
yeah, we've been hearing a lot about content, about the quality, about how to edit, about how to reach young audiences. What has been lacking so far, in my opinion, is talk a little bit about the money, because in the end it all comes down to money, it comes down to the funding situation. And so that's why we're here. We represent the regional film funds, of course, so we can't speak for the national film funds, but I wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about the funding situation. So first first of all, because we also heard that today and yesterday, there's so many different definitions on what is a documentary for young audiences. So I would like to ask you both, in your own personal opinion, and maybe also representing, of course, your funding body, what is your definition of a documentary for young audiences? And yeah, what is your definition on that? Maybe start, Helge, maybe you start.
Well, we don't have a clear definition as such. I would myself make a distinction between documentaries for kids and documentaries for younger audiences, which in my reading would be an age bracket between 14 to 17 years old. And those are two distinctly different groups of audiences, I would say. So at the same time, we don't have a different funding scheme. So all these projects would arrive at the same funding scheme in our fund and would also be looked at by the same jury. But still, I think you need to really look into how they are marketed, how they are received, how they are made, how they are distributed, and so on and so on. And there's quite a different set of conditions to that in each of the brackets.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, it's similar for us actually, because they are in the same funding scheme. It's all documentaries if they're made with documentary methods, or fiction if made with fiction methods. Well, we don't work with a jury. I'm commissioning editor, so we work on like decision making with one person. But it's all when discussing a project, I usually discuss with the producers whom they are speaking with in the project. And here at the workshop, we have been talking a lot about being on eye level, being on eye level with your participants in the film, being on eye level with the audiences. So if we feel through a project that you're on eye level with a certain age group, then that would be either like a children's documentary, or a documentary for young people, or a documentary for young adults, or a documentary for middle-aged people, or older, or, you know, it's like...
So there is no special scheme for documentaries for young audiences?
Not within our film fund. And then, since the film funds in Sweden are small, I mean, we are tiny compared to you. You're a country compared to us. More similar to actually the whole Swedish country film fund, which is the Swedish Film Institute. And they have a special commissioner for children's film, which also takes documentaries. So all kinds of filmmaking methods, animation, live action, everything apart from series.
Yeah.
It actually varies a little bit between the Scandinavian countries, how they are doing it.
Yeah, sure.
But they have a special amount of money for that.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have a jury system, so we have a jury of 6 people coming from very different backgrounds, and so we have a broad look at all the projects that arrive at our table. They're specialized in rather art house films and in lower budget projects, and then higher budget projects, more commercial leaning films. So those are the two worlds we are looking at. I think most likely children's documentaries or documentaries for younger audiences would arrive at the art house scale of things. And I think that our jury is actually very competent to judge those. So I have big trust in what our juries do, I have to say. But like you also, we don't have a distinct jury for kids' movies. Once in a while, if we really feel we need external expertise, we have lecturers, we have lectorate to have our projects looked at from external sources. But otherwise, the jury system we have is actually very well functioning.
And so if a children's documentary project or a documentary project for young audiences is submitted to your both funds, like to both of your funds, what happens after that? Is it really like taken within the same line of documentaries for adults, or do you, within, even though not having a special scheme, is there some kind of way that you distinct them, or do you treat them completely equally? Like maybe you can speak from your experience with the project of Gabi.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about a project that would fit within our later releases, which is Gabi between the age 8 to 13. And that one was actually not typical because it didn't start with development from us. It didn't have a producer attached in development, early development, that was from our region, because you need to be a producer from our region or a company from our region, or a producer working with somebody from a director from our region in order to apply for funding from us. So usually we are on in early development and then in production when all the other kind of funding is assembled, and also a distribution, some kind of distribution. We also enter into minority co-production sometimes. But Gabi was actually developed by a commissioner from the Swedish Film Institute, a documentary commissioner. So not through the children's film scheme, but through the documentary commissioner.
Through the documentary, okay.
And for a long time with a strong support.
Yeah.
And it took a long time before it had TV distribution on board. But by then we were on board for production. And then they also made a Norwegian co-production for the film. So in the end, we were many people collaborating together to, in funding the film.
Yeah. We saw yesterday, like it was an industry screening, public screening of 1 in a Million. And I think that is a great example because I remember Katharina saying that it wasn't actually like submitted as a children's or like a youth documentary. So from your experience, maybe talking about that particular project, how did it position itself within your fund and within the jury? How did they handle the project?
Look, we're a regional funding agency, just like you are. So we always have a look from a regional angle, and so projects resonate best with us if there's a strong talent input from our region, if it's director-driven, author-driven from out of our region, or if films are set in our region, which was the case in 1 in a Million. And the project arrived, I think, at our desk when it was already had some financing in place, and we looked at the project from how it was developed, who are the creative personnel behind the film, what's their track record, who are the producers behind the film, what's the distribution strategy, and we look at those projects in a very individualistic way. So each project can go very different routes. We don't necessarily always need to have a distribution contract in place. We don't always necessarily have to have a TV commitment in place for the films we fund. And at the end of the day, when our juries are professional juries. We don't have, it's not a technocratic jury. These are all people who are working in the industry, and everybody who works in the film industry goes by excitement. Yeah. Very simply speaking. And if the jury is excited and the project is charged in a way that we understand as a regional fund, then that's a very good precondition.
Yeah.
And I should perhaps also mention that Gabi is a project, like the title, it's following a person between the age of 8 and 13. And because it's a young person and it's a special film about a very special experience, it could not be released until, Gabi was actually older.
Yes.
So it's like a really long-term commitment, and there's a lot of talking through this process. But also for the producer, a lot of time, a long stretch before the actual majority of funding comes in place. And a lot of work has been done before that.
Yeah, I would like to talk a little bit about how the funding works. I guess a lot of people here know generally how funding for documentaries work, but there's probably also some who don't know it. So maybe you could just sketch how this works, and then I want to go a little bit into depth what that means for documentaries for children and for children. So maybe, I don't know, Helge, could you just, how does it work?
Very roughly speaking. So we don't initiate projects. We are there, we are approachable for producers depends on stage. We have different funding stages. So we support projects in development stage, in pre-production stage, at production stage, and distribution. And if you have a project that is far enough developed and that is sort of ready to go for financing, then at some point along the way of financing, we can be a partner for that project.
Yeah.
We usually don't finance films totally, so we're always part of a bigger financing landscape for each project, which is very individual for each project. Give or take, I think we participate in the financing between 10 to 25, 30% for a film. If you would like to have financing for a film, you need to apply, you need to speak to us beforehand, need to discuss the project. We have an application deadline, everything is digital, and then we are rather quick, I think, in decision making. We have a roughly 4 or 5 weeks decision making process. And then you know where you are with us, and then comes a whole contractual process after that. And we follow through usually, so if projects are going into cinemas and have a distribution live after that, then we usually also support the distribution of the film.
And speaking of children, Katharina, the producer of 1 in a Million, mentioned that before. Children are special in that sense that they tend to grow up. The production period could be or sometimes is different from working with adults or more like animals or topic-driven documentaries. So, because I know the producer of Gabi as well, could you just explain these a little bit what that means when you have a documentary for children or for young audiences, how the process maybe varies from, let's say, regular documentaries, if I can be so wrong in wording?
I mean, in a way it's very similar, because often documentaries, I mean, the story is made through time. So usually they take a lot of time to develop and to be like fully realized. On the other hand, you need to be like in very close contact, the director, and you know, it's not like you can step into something and then come back another year, and then, you know, it really needs to be a collaboration.
Yeah.
So that collaboration is also very like fragile. You need, as a producer, to be there to support your director a lot, and to also be able to handle the despairs and frustrations and everything when it takes a long time to fund a project.
Yeah.
And we like to be, I mean, we can fund development in several steps. So we like to think about ourselves as, someone said, the hardest 5 to 10% of a film to actually gather in funding. We can be those 5 to 10%, even though we can actually fund up to 30%, but that is very rarely because we're a small fund. So we can be there fairly early, and then we can also be there when the production is set and you tying the knots, so to say. And also as a dialogue partner, because we are co-producers. Like, we also are part of sharing the rights, so it's a very different position.
Different than we are.
And you are...
We're not a co-producer in a project. I mean, we do give out loans, so if films really make money back, which rarely happens, then we position ourselves very late in the process, and we are sort of keeping that money for future projects of the producers. So
but we are a not-for-profit fund. So any kind of funding that comes back, not funding but returns, is invested in the fund to be part of new funding for new projects. So otherwise, we don't have a distribution scheme. That would be really nice to have. But
I love how they two are talking without me. Okay, I'm totally obsolete. But I want to give you the opportunity to ask a question. Is there a question in the room, or maybe also on our audience watching online? If you have a question, you can type in, right? And so we have like a transferring person telling us if there's something happening online. Is there a question in the room, maybe, so far?
I can perhaps add, because we were talking about this, you know, do we have special schemes for children? Do we have, you know? And we did this research within Regio members some years ago, before the pandemic, and then between, I mean, all of the then 40 replies, 80% of all of the film funds can fund documentaries, and then we call it for children, so that it's like no discussion whether it's for youths or young adults or whatever. So it means that we can fund, but we get very few applications, all of us, for younger.
I mean, this is one of the questions, of course. I mean, the total number of projects we are receiving for address to younger audiences, I mean, let aside kids or younger audiences, is not very high.
Yeah.
And of course, you could make a case for a hand and neck situation to a certain extent. Then again, to ring fence money for a particular kind of productions that are so slim in the total volume is also it's hard to justify against the other projects. So in a way, for us, I can speak from the way we operate. It works quite well, and I don't see a specific need to ring fence money for documentaries in that field. In a way, I think it works quite well, the way we work.
Why would you say that there are so little applications? Because we've been talking about projects all day, we've been talking about ideas, we're talking about young people to older people, whatever. So it doesn't, speaking for that room, it doesn't seem like there's so little interest there. So from your point of view as funding bodies, why are there so little applications?
Let's speculate together.
Please do.
Look, I don't. The documentaries are driven by an interest in the world at large. The tendency we see in documentaries at large, I would say, is that they're driven by a very journalistic instinct, more than in the past, which is something I'm not so keen about. But that's the way it is, and that's sort of obviously documentaries are always co-financed by television stations, broadcasters. So, and I think we're talking about the spaces that are available to expose documentaries for kids. And I think we as funds are not in a position to offer a programming space. So, and to really have an understanding of where the visibility for projects lies is a key driver for looking at demand and supply. And in that sense, if there's not enough visibility for those films, the demand towards us is also very limited. That's one explanation. I'm sure there's 10 more.
Do you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, for us in Sweden, the first thing is the limited possibility for distribution. In order for the Swedish Film Institute to fund something, it needs to have some kind of distribution. It doesn't necessarily need to be a cinema distribution, but also with the Swedish TV, they don't have a slot for that kind of format. So either you can make it into the slot for long format documentaries, international, worldwide, or the 1 hour format Swedish documentaries, but then it needs to be also seen as relevant for an older audience, because there is no slot for the youth at all, not on the platform either, which I think is kind of sad. But then again, I think that Gabi, for example, I mean, it hasn't had its premiere on TV yet. It has been doing really, really well in festivals and special screenings, but on traditional cinema distribution, I mean, it's really hard. Those films do not come through because the marketing budget is not, and also the strategies, and it's really, really hard.
We have to keep in mind that we are looking at a very, very slim space in the total scheme of media production, let's say. So if we don't see that many applications, that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't that many films out. But maybe they are more urgent, maybe they are more pressing, maybe they are in a format that doesn't fit the big screen. And maybe that's also where the younger audiences are looking for those films more than in the traditional cinemas. Those also might be some explanations.
There's a question, lovely.
So my name is Barney Barnsteiner from Barnsteiner Film, and I just have a question to these two supporter of film themes. Question: would you recognize that a movie is really the theme is really open for young audience? When we bring a theme to you, for example, a producer comes to you up, says, "Okay, I have a really good documentary. It's very interesting," and how lucky would it be not only to ask for older audiences, also to get the young audience between 12 or 21? Yeah. Did you recognize? How do you manage that? That's my question for you.
Well, like I said earlier, for us it's a dialogue with the producer and with the director, of course. And that can also change through time, because we all know that documentaries are made in development. So perhaps you start with one viewpoint and one assumption that I really want to address this, and this will be interesting for And then as the story goes along, there comes something else that also adds to this, and that also makes it suitable for another age group or, secondary target group. So it's all in a dialogue, and for our funding, it doesn't really matter. It's a film. It's a film.
I think we look at the projects in the same way that you would look at projects, essentially. So we look who's behind the film, who's the director, what do they have to say, what's the intent of the director, who's the producer, what's the intent of the producer, who do they think this project will address to, in which area of the market will this film play, what's the distribution strategy, why do they think this will resonate with a younger audience, how do they want to address, how do they want to make it visible to a younger audience. And we have the opportunity to do video calls, so if we are more interested in certain projects or have questions for a project, we can speak directly with the jury and the applicant. So, the judgment for a project comes from a whole bunch of information. And in that sense, I think we are looking at projects like you would as well, as a distributor. With every, there's no perfect systems. So we have 6 people sitting around the table, and they're very good in what they do. They're directors, they're filmmakers, they're producers, they're distributors, they're sales agents. And they have their own particular subjective view on films, and that adds up to an informed opinion. And that's how we judge on films. We sometimes make mistakes. I think we're usually quite good to make judgments.
I have one question for you, because you said the filmmakers, producers, There's, as far as I understood it, nobody from the audience there. So I was wondering if your funds include the audience in some way when it comes to the decision on which project to fund, or also offer, let's say, counsel by young people when it comes to, of course, the funding of documentaries for young people. Let's call them young people.
I mean, we're really fortunate in our region because we have the initiative MBrain, which is basically a financing forum for content for young people. And they have a special track called Real Young, which is basically that. It's presenting projects for a panel of youth participants. And they are asking their questions to the filmmaking team, and through the questions you can also get responses and a dialogue going, and it becomes kind of youth approved in that process. And we also have another initiative regionally called Boost in Helsingborg, which is very much about, like, they use the word prototyping sometimes, but it's about finding out things. And one of those researches that we really encourage filmmakers to do is, you know, who is your audience? Who are you talking to? And engage that audience at early development, so that you actually know and you can figure out things and you can get response. So I know several of the projects that we have co-produced have used that kind of opportunity through development, and they are then in different ways using youth panels or youth discussion groups or other ways of finding out the relevance or getting input and inspiration for the filmmaker.
I mean, we have audience input in our cases either provided by the producers if they do market research before and show us how they have looked into this film will work with a younger audience and speaks to a younger audience. But they're also represented by cinema owners, for instance. We have a cinema owner in our case, from the Metropolis Cinema in Hamburg in our jury, and we have a sales agent in our jury who's also closer to our market and needs to think of how people will find their audiences in a sense. So that's a very valuable input, of course, into all the discussions.
Okay, we have very limited time. Is there a question from the audience or maybe from the online audience as well? So maybe now is the chance to ask if you have a question. There is a question.
I was wondering, the experts in your jury, they said there were producers and directors from your region. What happens if they end up on the table?
It didn't say they're from our region. Most of them are not. The cinema owner. We have a cinema owner, but cinema owners don't apply for funding so much. Usually, most of our juries are not from the region. If they are, then we have a regulation how they handle projects if they are somehow concerned, Befangenheit and conflict of interest. We have that in focus.
I think, unfortunately, Laurin, are we out of time or are we still having... Is there another last question? Then I have a last question to the two of you. So, I mean, we've been talking a lot, should there be more, should there be less, whatever. So what's your really blitz idea? Should there be more documentaries for young people or shouldn't there be more?
There should be more documentaries for young people reaching young people. Because basically, I mean, if you're talking diversity, we need to address age diversity as well. It's a basic human right to express yourself, also when you're young. It's a basic human right to be able to see yourself and experience yourself through culture. And when it comes to filmmaking, it's no different than other kinds of culture. So I really feel that, think about how many ages through life that you're actually young.
Yeah.
And how many people in a country that are young people. We're not serving them the way we should, today. That's my feeling, at least.
What would you say?
Look, I wouldn't be standing if I wouldn't think there should be more documentaries for young people. So first of all, yes, please. But then we need to be a bit more specific. I mean, that's a bold statement. That's fine. That's easy to collect behind. But at the end of the day, we need to see where those films happen and how are they, seen by their audience at the right channels, in the right way, made in a way that is really digestible for a younger audience and addresses it in the right way. So yes, sure, more, but then please be specific. And then, different films have different formats, have different media worlds, and so on.
Yeah.
We need to accept that we live in a very, secluded media environment as well.
That's the perfect last word. And there's a question in the chat. Laurin, are we allowed to take that question? Yes.
If it's a good one.
If it's a good one.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. Could there be a commitment to involve young people in the decision-making of what films get commissioned?
And the question is from Mark Hyham from the European Film Club.
Great. We discussed it through the workshop. Actually, we've discussed a lot of things, which are also involving the words flexibility and braveness. So for us, there are possibilities for us to include in decision-making all kinds of people who are not part of, if they are not biased by the project, we could.
Yeah.
Let's discuss how and at what kind of situation and through what kind of means. I think it's brilliant if it's also organized in a way which is sustainable and not too random and focused on it, so that it's a good experience both for that jury and for the filmmakers and the team.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a possibility. There's no rule that we cannot.
Would you say yes to that?
Reluctantly.
Reluctantly.
I'm not averse per se. We really have to look at it from the way we work and make it work in the way we operate.
Yeah.
I mean, that said, as a public funding institution, again and again, you have to look into the way public money is distributed, who decides, who distributes, who tells whose story, who's involved in decision making, etc. So, and then those evaluations they happen again and again, and they might lead to some different ways of operating. But it's not trivial. It's not. You've pointed out a couple of questions that need to be answered. They can be answered. I'm sure there's possibilities.
Yep.
It needs to be balanced in a certain way. If we have one project out of 50 being a documentary for young audiences and we have a 2-day workshop for a younger audience, that's out of proportion. We can't. We're out of our depth in that. So it needs to fit in a way that we can digest as an organization as well. And but that doesn't mean no. So we're looking into all kinds of different ways of how to distribute money in different ways, and actually we are looking into how to involve audiences or wider circles of the industry as well. But that's all very early stage, and we'll see.
Sure. I mean, we have the beautiful members of the European Film Club here, which I am sure he is referring to. So there are structures, but structures have to be built and structures have to be connected to each other. Existing organizations have to be connected to each other, and that's what we're here for. So I think that was a nice bridge to what we've been working on the last hours. So Lisa, Helge, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Thank you for having us.
I think we have to make a room for
We're
these
done.
flip charts.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that was actually the perfect bridge, that last question online. Thank you for that. And now we will present the fruits of our work. We split it up into groups, into very different, or into groups that were content very different people from different parts of the industry, as well as young people. And we were working in 3 different stages and 3 different aspects. And now you will see 2 members of our blue group, because we were color coding, presenting the work of the last 1.5 days. Will you join me here? We have here a member. We have here 2 young members and.
So hello everyone who's new here. We are the 2 young members of the Blue Group. I am Liva, I am from Latvia, and I am a member of European Film Club consultation group.
I'm Yaron, I'm from Berlin, and I'm part of the Youth Film Jury of Berlin, which is part of a nationwide project to introduce young people to movies.
So yeah, and we will be the first ones to discuss the things we explored and find out in this 1.5-day workshop. 3 open questions that we should explore more, and 3 things we learned or will be keeping in our minds. So the first thing, which is the most important thing that should have been that we should keep, is communication. As we know, communication is very important in building every type of relationship. So it's also important in building this communication with the young members of society and the members who are working on the film. So it's the named co-working. You're working together to build what's best, listen to each other, listen what everyone's saying, and outreach. And one of the main points is to be open-minded in everything. Be open-minded to new ideas, to new participants, to new ways how to do things, and in these ways you will be more open to different types of documentary films and will see probably more people because you are explored more directions.
Okay, and another few things we decided were the most important were ambition, access, and format, because we can only get or grow the audience of documentary films if we are ambitious and if we try new things with the format and give younger people more access to these films. So we were talking about how you shouldn't underestimate not only the audience, but generally speaking, every person that contributes to a film, be it in the making or afterwards with reception, and that we shouldn't be lazy about these things, but really brave and try out new things. And also to give a younger audience more access, and also do not gatekeep certain topics or certain films just because they maybe are made or in the process were made for older people, for example, but we should aim to give access to everyone, to every topic, and also that we should work as a team together and not be working alone or being selfish in that sense, and also with the formats that we try out new things, and also that we keep in mind that social media is a growing platform, or is not the competition, or it's not the enemy, but rather a way to enhance the competition and also to enhance the teamwork we're trying to put through to get more people to enjoy and watch documentaries. Yeah, I think that was it.
If there are questions from the audience or online, you are so amazing. It's an A+ again. But just from me, because we talked beforehand, was there anything that you think was missing in the discussion? Maybe something that you would have liked to address that was out?
I think we covered a wide range of topics, but I think going into detail into some like more or smaller topics would be a great thing if the workshop would have been longer. But with this short time period, I think we did the most out of it basically. Yeah.
Hey, if there are no questions right now, I think you are hanging around also. So if anyone has a question later, that's also okay, even online. And then we would switch to the orange group.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Hannah and I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. So in my group we have discussed about how to make young adults watch documentaries, and we believe, so we highlighted 3 things. We believe that documentaries should be offered in different places, like different kinds of social media platforms, and I think maybe like a website or something. We also think that to make documentaries more interesting to people, especially young adults, it is important that they can find someone that they can identify with, and we can also say a connection with the character. So it is really important, and to me personally it means a lot when I'm watching a movie where I can find the connection with the characters, because that is basically finding my own self and feeling so much better about it. And we also talked about how do young people find documentaries, and I was asked the question in the group, and I said that the main thing, how I find the documentaries and how I make myself watch a documentary film is basically if I get a recommendation from either a friend or if I see on social media the ratings or something, like if I see some good topics, and that is basically how I can make myself watch a documentary. And I believe that we should have like more opportunities than just recommendations from someone else. And now I'm going to pass the mic.
Thank you. Oops. I'm destroying the decoration. My name is Bernd Saling. I'm a filmmaker working with children and youth. And we were lucky to have one film hero in our group, Yara, from the film 1 in a Million. And Yara said at one point that the film was for her life-changing. So she it changed a lot for her, being a protagonist, being in front of a camera and seeing herself and discussing the footage, what's about her life and her family in this case. So I think film documentaries can even be life-changing for the audience. Like, we all have films in mind, what changed our life when we have seen it. We carry it the rest of our life. And the question is always how to get you young folks to those films who touch you as much as we have seen yesterday and today, two films who all of us actually touched very, very deeply. So, and all of us could put a button from three flip charts to one of this, and this one I took as a filmmaker because those two examples of films showed how it is possible as a filmmaker to get very, very close to your protagonists and to involve them, however that functions. In this case, today we've seen that the protagonists shoot themselves without the director being near, or we've seen this YouTube star and the filmmaker use the footage, but this even goes until the whole procedure of filmmaking, editing, and so on. That for me as a filmmaker, it showed how I even can think about in the next project how I get closer to my protagonists, and then you get closer to the audience as well, I think. Well, and different lengths came up right now because it's tricky with these long documentaries, because all of you and even my children watch YouTube videos, so those are very short, and then to convince them to go to the cinema and watch a 90-minute film is hard. So actually, when we did documentaries, we tried sometimes to focus on shorter films, but we have the problems. You have a 20 minutes, good 20 minutes short documentaries, you never get it to the distributor or to the cinema, because the cinema actually don't show films as compilation. Maybe there is another way. We had it just to think in the very beginning how to distribute shorter films in a compilation, what we do in festivals as well, to have a screening of 2 or 3 films. Of course, we have then a Q&A in the middle, and this works very well. Maybe there's an open field how we can find new cinema presentations of films. That's about our group. Thank you for listening.
Also, if you have questions now or later, just show while we are fixing this. Otherwise, I would ask the yellow group. I would ask the yellow group. Yeah.
Yeah, in our group, we took a lot of the things we've already said and put them together, and we saw that we created a circle in some kind of way, because we, first of all, talked about the storytelling of documentaries, and the documentary itself is a big spectrum, and it depends on how the story is told and what topic is in the documentary, and so there are different people who watch that, and they say what they think about it. Like, of course, there are the people who are involved, like the filmmakers, but there are also like a test group, and we think that also representatives of the topic should watch that movie and say, like, is it right? Is it true what's shown? Or is it like a wrong image? And so that way we can make the audience feel included and like immersed into that documentary and watch it, not only see it, but watch it really and get involved in that documentary. And then the marketing gets better because they can tell like the filmmakers again, what did we like about this movie? What did we not like? What's good, what's bad? And then they can make new movies that are better or not even better, but different and maybe touch a new audience. And so we created a circle and we found out the most important thing for our group was discussion.
And the three open questions that came to our minds was, what comes out of it? How can we make it transparent? And how can we implement what we have found out from the discussion, from the test groups, from the audience, from one of the most important things we believe is to talk to the gatekeepers, because those people have weight on the industry. Their statements have weight on the industry. They can change stuff. They can make it, for the better. The documentaries for youths can actually become a trend because of these gatekeepers, and we believe that that's one of the most important things of our presentation.
Yeah, and we think that, of course, discussion is a really important point, but the most important thing about discussion is listening to each other. Because if you discuss with each other and you don't listen to the other person, what's the point of discussing it anyway? So it's important to talk to the gatekeepers, and the most important thing is that they listen, and we have to find out a way to make them listen.
We have a question online.
Yes, there's a question. Who do they think or define as the gatekeepers? So the gatekeepers that you just mentioned, who would you think they are? How would you define them? It's a question from Margarete S. from the internet.
Hello, Margaret from the internet.
Serious.
So for myself, I had like especially the people in mind who the cinemas, because if the movies are in the cinemas, and there's advertisement for them, because the people of the cinema want people to go into the cinema and watch the movie so they can make money, obviously. And so I think this is the most important group of people who can change something and to just lighten up the image of documentaries through advertising it more and bringing it into the group of people who are supposed to watch it.
Yeah.
It was Margarete Schweinitz from the Luftgen Filmverleih, by the way. She introduced herself then after.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
And I think we have to give like a little bit of a second because the stream is delayed for a few minutes. Margarete, if you want to add something, like please type it in and we'll come back to that, okay?
Okay, then I would have another question for you. I am not sure where comes the feedback in. Do you imagine it being like right at the script part, like after the idea, or after the first scenes have been shot? Just because we try to be specific at the last thing. What was your idea? When are the young people coming in to the project?
Yeah, we believe that the feedback comes from, per se, test groups, representatives of the topic, even maybe filmmakers themselves. They watch their movies and they're like, well, maybe we should change some scenes, maybe I could have done something better, and even after the movie's release, the film's release, feedback comes in from the audience to the film directors, to the cinemas, to the film companies. What should have they done better? What sort of topics maybe that director should or should not have put in the movie, or maybe cover it in the future. I believe that's why the feedback comes.
Yeah, so in conclusion, we think that feedback is important in every stage of making the movie. Before, afterwards, during the making of the movie, like it's always important to see how people react to it.
Okay, then thank you very much. And we have dark orange, I think.
Okay, thank you. So we were collecting our favorite ideas from the last few days as well. And the thing we started out with were that documentaries have an image problem. We again used our beautiful image of the broccoli because, yeah, the idea that we just had in mind was that broccoli has a really bad image, but if you just tried, if you prepared correctly, then it's a very tasty food that most of us like, I'm sure, would like. And just as broccoli, documentaries have an image problem under young people, especially because of television programs. Most young people think of documentaries as very boring, long films, very journalistic, not that artistic, maybe a replacement for a school lesson. So that's something that should be changed. So yeah, documentaries have an image and a communication problem. Then we were talking about how we could change just that. And the main word that we always came back to was involvement in development and funding. And yeah, we, just as the other groups, came back to different methods that give young people, young adults, the opportunity to, yeah, really get involved into the filmmaking process. Especially important for us was the working on eye levels, so that young people really get the opportunity to be heard, and adults really being ready to listen to young people and not only say, yeah, we want to have some young kids, so we are, I don't know, so we have done it, but really be interested in what they have to say and, yeah, work on eye level. Then we wanted to, yeah, have the opportunity or to create a film culture under young people, to really give them the opportunity to go to the cinema and afterwards tell their friends about the movies they liked. And the main topic that we came back to was movie or film education in schools. After school, with projects like the youth film jury that I'm a part of, yeah, it's just really important to, yeah, really get that culture started also under young people. And yeah, trust is an important part of that, like involvement as well, because especially during the process of filmmaking, it's important that filmmakers and actors or protagonists trust each other, because filmmaking is always a very intimate process, and yeah, everybody needs to trust each other.
Yes, and another point we came back to in all discussions we had, that what we need is more flexibility, because the world outside is changing very quickly and sometimes our structures are too slow to cope with it. And I think I do not say too much, but all of us, we enjoyed our workshops a lot, because it was a great atmosphere and it was like an exercise on eye level. So we already get somewhere. And so one of the tasks was also to say, okay, how can you continue this process, what we did here? And we came to the conclusion that for further discussions, definitely there should be included more distributors, exhibitors and funders. For those from Germany, now there is the discussion started again for the federal film law. And perhaps it's time again to say something about more flexibility, especially concerning distribution of documentaries or of films for children in general. So what about the windows? How and think more tailor-made, that it's not this typical, you have to go to the cinemas, then you do this, then you do that, and it always have to be feature length, but being more flexible and just serve your audience better and also explore the possibilities of different platforms and how they can cater each other. And yeah, we should be more brave. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions here? Because for me, I have seen this growing, the broccoli and everything, but so I don't really have any questions. I think you explained it very well, the points, and I think especially the broccoli and the trust and the involvement were three topics that we keep coming back, keep circling. But if there's anything not understanding for the outsiders, maybe you can just ask it. Otherwise, we are swapping to light green. Yeah, Ewan?
Maybe we can clarify one thing a bit, the different, more flexible platforms, because for the people that haven't been in the workshops the past few days, it's maybe interesting just to add that we were talking about how social media can be a tool for feature filmmakers to use their media, use their experience to create formats for YouTube, for example, for TikTok, for Instagram, where they can catch the attention and the interest of young people and introduce them to formats like that and maybe bring them to the cinema eventually.
So light green. Maria? You can also acknowledge the different styles of...
Hi everyone, I'm Maria from the European Film Club, and my group has discussed a lot, and it was so great. It was so great hearing and sharing new ideas with a group of people with so many different ages and people with different careers in the film industry. So, we started to talk about the audience. In documentaries influence the audience a lot. They engage the audience's critical thinking. But on the other side, we need to focus on we need to engage with the audience. We should include the audience when making documentaries. Another solution, another question in this workshop was how to include young people. Because filmmaking is changing and the future is starting now. One solution is education. We should talk about films and read films in schools, for example, to share ideas, to share knowledge to new filmmakers through social media or new ways to change the film industry, to change the way we make documentaries. But another problem is sometimes there's a lack of communication between young people and adults working in the film industry. For example, in a new project idea, they want our input, but we don't know they want, or we don't know how to talk to them. So we need an international networking. We need an intergenerational networking. We need to start working eye level, collaborating with each other. So, for conclusion, we need to embrace in the future co-creation, new tendencies, for example, social media, and new ways for sharing ideas. Thanks.
Great. Some questions here. I think it was very straightforward. None there. So then, thank you. You will also have the time at the end if you maybe develop some more questions. And then we will go to the green group, the dark green group. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to share our experiences and ideas that we collected in the last 2 days. Yeah. So here are the ideas we highlighted and want you to keep with us for the future.
The first one is the like eye level about the control and collaboration. Yeah.
By that we mean that documentaries are very special because they are a format that can give control away to the process of making a documentary. And it is open to process because a documentary always evolves, for example, around a protagonist. So for a good documentary to be created, the filmmakers have to give away control and especially start working together with young people, with the people they want to reach. And this is what we mean by being on the same eye level between filmmakers and the audience, the young people.
Yeah, and it's also included in media education, and it's also for not also for children or youngsters, but also for adults, and it's relation and content and information from different screens.
And especially in the making of documentaries, what is very important is that we change the power dynamics that right now at the present are still, in the film industry. So there has to be more space for the creative process. And this could mean that, for example, young people are involved in the making of films, not only as an actor, for example, as protagonist, but also behind the scenes. So why not have young adults walking with the filmmaker, with the director, and both of them walking hand in hand, so that in the end there's an authentic and real project, a real documentary that everybody can relate to. So it's important that we don't leave out the young people in the process of making a documentary. And so another part that we highlighted was the media and especially the film education. So schools, young people in school have to be more educated about film and what is important nowadays in films. But hot take, not only young people have to be educated, but also the filmmakers. There's so many new formats that we want to, that the film industry has to discover, like how to deal with social media. So it's learning not only on our side of the young people, but also on the people on the side of the film industry.
And it's important about the courage and trust in sequel if you want to learning something also in this industry.
So maybe to finish our 5 minutes, what we take home is that young people really want the representation in movies, and this workshop gave us or showed us that our voices are heard, and that there are people who are interested really to listen to us, and that there is definitely a way to work together, because I think everybody is willing to learn from each other and to listen to each other. So thank you very much for listening, for your time.
Thank you also. And do you might have any questions to this presentation? Or now that it maybe sunk in a bit and you heard some different presentations and you maybe get an idea of what we did in the workshop, maybe you have some questions about the workshop or maybe some concepts that you would like to get explained. If not, I would say thank you. And yes, I can say from my perspective that I had a very, very interesting and, as I already said, also very entertaining time during this workshop. And you've seen just a few of the sparks that have been created here. And what sticks with me, for example, is when we started this workshop and we started with the why, and there was this huge question, it's why documentary, which is of course very open. And then I think you saw the group that found the picture of the broccoli, which I said we will keep circling back to, and about the broccoli being healthy but unpopular. But at the same time, I think already on the first day we talked about the need for documentary and about the ways that it can reach us and that it is able to get maybe closer to us, because we don't have the same possibilities of distancing us than we have in fiction. And the two examples that we saw, the two films that we saw, which was Sumo today and 1 in a Million yesterday, I think they proved really well the power of documentary. And as I would like to quote one of our moderators, one of our from the FBW film jury, that it changed for her exactly when she saw it in the cinema, for example. And that is with both of the films, for me, the case as well, because I saw them on the small screen beforehand, and then I saw them on the big screen yesterday and today. And these are two films, if you have not seen them, go see them, and go see them in the cinema, because I think they are like really extremely good examples of films that are reaching young audiences if they get to see it, but they are also reaching adults. And this is a topic that we also keep circling back to. And I think there was a really nice comparison in one of the talks this afternoon, comparing it to music, that there is a certain kind of music for kids, and then at a certain age there is just music for everyone. And this is, I think, a question that we've been also asking ourselves, how should documentaries be targeted at? You heard it from the groups as well. And after the why, as I said, we went to the how, and there also we came a lot back to the topic of music, and about music as a part that can emotionally capture us. But we also kept circling back all the time, I think, to characters and to persons, to the main characters in films that are like that are capturing our emotions and our empathy. And here was, for me, one of the things that I'm taking away with the personal view and the way of talking directly to the public. The protagonists in both of the cases of the films do that in different ways, in very different ways, and are creating a kind of eye-level situation there. And eye-level situation, I think you've also heard this a lot of times now here. But this was something for me that, that is not just a word, but that is something that happened for me during this workshop also, because I think people really listened to each other and got into good conversation about stuff and about documentaries. And so at the end, when we got to the what and to the ideas on what can be done, I think there were some really extremely interesting ideas. And one of the ideas I'm also taking away from it is the need for a platform, and not only a platform where films can be screened, but a platform where interaction can be happening. Interaction, as you said, intergenerational interaction, international and intergenerational interaction, where you can find people, where you can find topics. And so I think there has a lot of discussion been happening and a lot of themes being tackled here, but it also showed us a lot of things that need to be done or that could be done. And I think this workshop was a really nice start for this. And from my side, I would like to thank Hannah Reifgas and Lauren Dietrich, who made up the concept of this workshop. And I think for all the people who participated, I know we took you through a lot, because it was a very fixed timetable, and it was switching a lot between groups and then panel and then groups, and then we had to run to the cinema, and then we talked about a film. So it was very intensive, and I'm really grateful for you for leaning into it, but also getting out of your comfort zone, I think, a lot of the times. And I think this would not have been possible if you, Hannah and Lauren, have not invited so many nice people, as we decided at the beginning. So I think when we kept always circling back to the word of trust, which we were talking about for the director and character arc, or for the relation between them, it's also the trust, I think, that we had in this room to say what we wanted to, and to listen, as you also said. And now I would also like to say some more things, because this industry workshop at the Nordische Filmtage Lübeck, and also this panel today, would not have been possible without a lot of partners and supporters. So first of all, I want to thank the Fund for German Film Festivals, DE Plus, of the Goethe Institute, in cooperation with the German Federal Foreign Office. And they funded this workshop, so it would not have been possible without them. Thank you very much for that, because I think it was a really extremely good gathering of people and from different areas. A big thanks to the DAE, to the DAE, Documentary Association of Europe, because they inspired the topic, and I think Bridget O'Shea has already left, but she was kind of also the spark for this. So if you meet her or if you look her up online, don't hesitate to ask her and get in touch with her. She's really great. As every year, we collaborated with our trusted partners and friends to organize this workshop. So thanks a lot for the collaboration, for the support, and for the exchange and the inspiration from the MOIN film funding, especially Katrin. Thank you, because you not only, you've been here, you gave us your time and your expertise. So thanks for that, and for the whole team of Creative Europe des Hamburg, Britta Erich, who also participated, and Christiane Siemen and Lisa Emers, and maybe we can, for MOIN and things, have a little clap here. And we could not have done this exchange without all the young adults here. And I know you have been mentioned a lot, but it's really, it would have been so boring, and it would have been just like any other workshop, grown-ups talking about kids. And as I said, it was really cool of you to give us your expertise and to be, I think, as demanding as you were, which is really cool. I wish I would have been like that when I was your age. And to say what you think and to say what you need, because I think this really needs to be heard. And so we could not have done it without the FBW Youth Jury and with Eva Maria Schneider-Reuter here, who brought you here. So thank you, Eva Maria. And also you from the European Film Club, thanks to the support of Mark Hingham and Dorina Orga. They are not here, but you are all here. So one big clap for the European Film Club as well. And we are super grateful for the input by Kids Regio. thank you, Elisabeth, and thanks for taking the stage here, and for your partners on stage, from Lisa Nyed from Film Skåne and Helge Albers from MOIN. So, and of course to everyone else who gave input here for the films and for all the other inputs that we could have not done this workshop without. Thank you to the European Hansemuseum Lübeck and to the whole team that hosted us for the workshop and for this panel. And thanks at last in the name of Thomas Heiler and Hanna Reifgas and Lauren Dietrich from the Norgische Filmtage Lübeck, who organized this workshop and panel together. A huge thanks to the team. Thank you, Nana Sator. Thank you, Patricia Witte, and thank you, Nina Mumm. Thank you from me as well. It was really, really cool. And this is, yes.
Very much, Lina, for hosting us and keeping it all together for like 2 days. It's been a really wonderful experience. So the biggest and last applause of the day for you. Thank you so much.
So this was the open part, and now I think we can mingle. So.
Yeah, the internet has left.